Hi, boys and girls. Welcome back. So today is our math lesson. This is 10.2, by the way. So 10.2 is about classifying triangles by their angles. So when we say classify, you're going to hear that word a lot. It's going to say classify the angle, classify the triangle, classify the shape, right? So what that means is basically give the shape, the triangle, the angle a name. What kind of triangle is that? So we're going to learn about 3 triangles. Now, in the last lesson, I was trying to get you guys to understand that those vocabulary words are very important because they're going to help us learn for the rest of this chapter. Now, you'll see why in this lesson because it's pretty much just a repetition of the vocabulary we already learned, except for the word triangle. So we've all heard of triangles, we've all drawn triangles, we've all seen triangles, we see them every day. Think of a few things that are triangles that you see a lot, maybe a slice of pizza. I can only think of food right now, like a piece of pie or something like that, but there's lots of things that are triangles. Signs on the street, what else? I'm only thinking about food right now. But anyways, so basically, this is a triangle, right? A triangle is made up of 3 angles as well as 3 points, right? So a triangle has 3 points. 1, 2, 3. Now, if you want to give this triangle a name, you'd write it like this, just like we did for our angles. You draw a little triangle and you'd call this triangle A, B, C. Okay? Now, we're going to learn about 3 different kinds of triangles that I just mentioned earlier. And it's pretty much like what we've already talked about. So we're going to learn about right triangles. So what that looks like is, we'll learn those first. So a right triangle, think about what that could mean. Think about what we learned about yesterday and a right angle, what that could mean. So a right triangle looks something like this, right? This is just an example. Triangles come in all shapes and sizes. But remember, we said this little box tells us that this angle is equal to how many degrees? Think about it, 90 degrees, right? So a right triangle is any triangle with one right angle. It only has to have one in order to be a right triangle. If it's smaller, then it can't be a right triangle because we learned that smaller angles are acute angles, right? So this is our first triangle, a right triangle. The next one, I'm going to erase this, but I'll let you look at it for a second if you need to copy it. You can also pause the video at any moment so that you can copy what's on the board. Okay, the next triangle, I won't erase the word triangle, is going to be an obtuse triangle. Now, remember I told you guys that I like to say the word obtuse like this, obtuse, right? That means big. So, just like the right triangle had one right angle, what can we assume about the obtuse triangle? That it might have one obtuse angle. So, what that might look like, obtuse triangles are kind of hard to draw for me, but what that might look like is this, right? Now, these angles look pretty small. So you could say, well, can't that be an acute triangle because it has small angles? It can't be because in an acute angle, all the angles need to be, well, I don't want to get too far ahead. But anyways, this is an obtuse triangle because it has one obtuse angle. And we know that an obtuse angle is greater than, think about it, greater than a right triangle, so greater than 90 degrees. Oops. Greater than 90 degrees, less than 180. That means this triangle could have the angle 179 because it's not 180. It's less than that. So that's an obtuse triangle. I'll give you a second to copy that. And then finally we have an acute angle. So an acute angle is, like I said earlier, acute is kind of different because for obtuse and right triangle, only one angle, one side of that triangle had to be obtuse or right. But when you have an acute triangle, it might look like this. Every single angle, all three angles, have to be acute. So I'm going to write that here because that's really important. All three angles must be acute. That means all of these three angles, and let me get a different color, all of these three angles have to be less than a right triangle, which we memorized it. It's less than 90 degrees. Okay, that means each angle here could be, they could all be different sizes, but they just have to be less than 90. For example, this could be 42 degrees, this one could be 59, and this one could be, I don't know, 23 for all we know. That's not right. I'm just putting examples there, right? Because each of those angles is less than 90 degrees, which tells us that it's an acute triangle. So on your own, what they're going to do is, I'll give you a few more seconds. What they're going to do is they're going to give you a lot of triangles. The triangles they won't have measurements. They'll just be pictures of triangles. Now, I know that we know that acute angles are less than 90 degrees, and that's really important. But in those pictures, you're just going to choose which triangle would best classify, triangle name would classify that triangle. So if I showed you like a bigger triangle, then it's most likely going to be an obtuse triangle. If I show you a triangle with a little square in the corner, we know that that little square tells us that it's a right angle, so it has to be a right triangle. Now remember, for a right triangle and obtuse triangle, only one angle has to be obtuse or right. But acute triangles are different because all three angles must be acute. Every single angle must be acute. That means that if one angle is bigger than all of these other ones, that's okay with measurements, but if in the picture it looks huge, it's not acute. Probably obtuse. So keep that in mind. You can always come back and watch these videos again if you need to review. Please make sure that while you're watching these videos, you're taking notes. And again, like I told you in the last video, that you can use note cards because these are really important. And or you can just have like a little notebook if you have one. Or I know on your Chromebook that you can use Post-its and stuff. A lot of you guys know how to do that better than me. So you can make a little post-it on your Chromebook screen and write notes there or in Google Docs. Whatever you have to do, piece of paper, scratch paper, whatever you have to do to take notes, that will be really helpful. So this is 10.2, and then you can follow the link to complete the activity that goes with this lesson. Okay, bye guys.